Hello, hello, hello my peoples. This video is a little bit different than my usual fare because it is time again for me to outline a book. So just like how I did with the Hidden Temple, you guys are gonna watch along as I outline the entirety of the third book. Holy crap, I am halfway done. So before I begin, there are just like a couple of things that I really do need to kind of, bring to light, as it were. So through the course of writing The Hidden Temple, I added and changed enough things that I was forced to completely revamp the next books. Book 3, 4, and then settling on 5. However, well, initially I was like, fuck my life, why do I do this to myself? Honestly, as a whole, I'm actually quite pleased with the way the series will be going in the future. However, I did learn from my mistakes. And over here, which you guys cannot see, hopefully, because spoilers, are main points that I want or that I need to keep in mind as I am writing the next books. So these are things that happened in the previous books that I don't want to forget, like who died, how many people died, who killed them. I forget that so much. Like half the time I'm sitting here writing like I do for, like I'm a writer for Supernatural and people just keep coming back from the dead. But anyways, things that need to be hinted at or groundwork that needs to be laid down for like overall storyline, interesting things, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. So hopefully that'll keep me in track since I don't typically do the grid method anymore. I just kind of do my own thing, which is a little bit of storyboarding-ish-esque, I guess I should say. Because in all honesty, I think about scenes and I try to plot out the scenes and then I just throw them up and that way I can rearrange, take off, or make notes as needed. Let me talk about my setup. So here I have the board, to which I will be using post-it notes to put everything on. And then on my computer, I have my notes that I kind of did when I was working on my revamps, and then my Thai tea cup on my manga shelves. Yeah, Thai tea is delicious, and I happened to find an instant mix at Food Lion, so I was like, haha, I'm drinking the shit out of that stuff. So for the most part, you're gonna see a sped up version of what it is I'm doing because honestly, no one wants to watch hours and hours of me just bebopping off my own little world with my headphones on, writing down stuff. So it'll be sped up. There might be some overlay and I'll pause and I'll talk about things, to bear in mind as you're working on outlining your own novels. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get my shit rolling. I gotta get my tunes on, my headphones, so I can pretend like I'm the only being in the universe and get to creating. So I know that this may not seem like a lot going on between Act 1 and Act 2, but in all honesty, this is a dual storyline, just like how The Hidden Temple is. So this means that I have the balance between two different places with their own arcs, setups, and inciting incidents. So while these are just mostly like the main points that I had to try to reach to, and then we go into Act 2, which is the bulk of where a book normally is. So In the events of Act 2, things on both sides are kind of gearing up and going towards what will eventually be the climax. And this is where most of my meat is going to be, and I have to go, you know, one section's for one storyline, one section's for another storyline. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but I'm kind of a plantser, so that means that while I do have a generalized idea of where I want my book to go, I'd rather let a lot of it happen organically. I'm going to try to curb that a little bit because it tends to get me into trouble. Alright, on with Act 2. So I am now nearing the third act of my book, of the next book. So I moved some things up because I thought it was better in the first act, just kind of like the setup and then the catalyst. Like for some of the dual storyline, it gets a little bit tricky because I have to try to balance like the back and the forth between the two to make sure that there's an equal amount of storytelling. And because honestly, like there's a lot of moving parts going on right now, even I can barely keep track of them. But once I added the last of the notes from when I was rehashing everything, things kind of went along a little bit smoother because I didn't have to feel like I had to keep going back and forth to my computer to see about the notes. I mean, they're there if I need them, but now I'm really kind of going on to the main thing. So the interesting thing about an Act 2 is that typically this is where you get introduced into a new world. For one set of my characters, they are introduced to a new world and they kind of have a little bit of a shaky start with things, but things continue to kind of work in a forward momentum for them. For the other characters, they are in a singular place, continuing on the storyline from what happens in the Hidden Temple. So they don't necessarily move a lot, but we are introduced to a lot of other characters, and this bit is a little bit fast-paced for the most part because it is a lot of like Six of Crows style of planning and playing around type of things, just to give you a generalized idea. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget to pace myself with is the big thing at the very end down here. Like this is the very last thing that is going to be mentioned in the book, and I want to make sure that I pace myself in my planning, that it flows. I don't want, you know, too much happening up here and then nothing happening down here, or nothing happening up here then all of a sudden. So now I'm kind of figuring out or finalizing some things for my second catalyst, because that's how everything goes when you go from one act to another. Your first act typically is things like your setup, introducing the world and the characters, and making sure that your readers understand the world as it is, and the rules and the stakes as to which they're played. The catalyst bits are what is going to drive them into the second act. The second act is dealing with their choices that they made from said catalyst. So as they go on, typically with like an A story, a B story, so an example of like the Hunger Games, you know, the A story is still Katniss trying to deal with everything from the Hunger Games, but the B story tends to be the relationships that she is developing between the characters and Peeta. I have some of that in like a smaller scale in between each dual storyline, but for the most part, right now it is still very rough. So now that I'm here on my last little bit, I now have to try to merge these two individual storylines into one cohesive storyline to carry myself all the way down to my climax and the wrap up and for the little sweet bit at the end. It's coming along very nicely. Alright, so that is pretty much it for right now. I know that my third act seems a whole lot fuller than the first and definitely the second. There are still a few things in the second act that I kind of have to figure out, and it's mostly the spy play. I need to kind of really sit down and think about that, but I want to do that a little bit more organically given on what happens as I continue to write. And I tend to throw in a lot of details for the climax because I think of my books in the ways of movies. And so the climaxes are always the biggest thing in my head with like the CGI realistically explosions, the music, all that fun jazz, you know. That's really in there. I'm kind of excited for how this is gonna go. Not only does this wrap up a couple of different little storylines, it also really does move a lot of things forward. So that's it. Book 3 is outlined, and I will be starting on that shortly. I know this looks really crazy now that I'm looking back at it, but anywho's, so that is all that I have for you today, my dears. Thank you for being with me while I but planned out the madness that is book 3. I am going to try to get this one done within a year though. 18 months tops. Hold me to it, people. So that is all that I have for you today. I'm going to go ahead and bebop on off. If you want to see what else I'm doing, go ahead and check all my social media links down here below. And if you have any questions about this book or just the series in general, go ahead and comment down below. Don't forget to like, share, and click that bell to subscribe. Good lord. I post videos roughly once a week. Sometimes if I have extra things going on, I'll do multiple posts. But who knows, because sometimes life kicks me in my ass and I don't do anything. So anywho's, y'all stay safe out there, have fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.